Hey folks, this is the problem I see with marketing teams all the time. And it's not just marketing teams, but solo creators like myself. They have one good piece of content. It could be a blog post, a webinar recap, maybe even a product update. Then they need to distribute it across 5 different platforms, each with different format, different character limits, different audience expectations. So either one person spends half their day rewriting the same ideas in slightly different wrappers, or they just copy and paste and hope nobody notices. The problem is that both of those options are pretty bad. What I want to show you is 3 different workflows inside of Claude that solve real distribution problems. You can use it for competitive research, turning rough notes into a client-ready slide deck. Each one starts off with simple inputs and procedures and produces something you can actually use. So let's get into it. Here's the first one. You have a blog post that's maybe 1,500 words and you need it to become a LinkedIn post. You also want it to become a 5 to 7 tweet thread for X and a newsletter blurb and 2 or 3 different Instagram captions. The key thing here is that each platform has its own rules. LinkedIn rewards longer posts with a strong opening line. X needs to be punchy, self-contained per tweet, and then the thread has to continue building on top of that. Instagram captions need a hook in the first 55 characters because that's all anyone sees before they tap more. And a newsletter blurb needs to tease without giving anything away. So most people would think, okay, just ask Claude to repurpose all of this for different platforms. You'll get 5 different versions that all sound the same, which is obviously the common mistake here. Instead, what we can do is give Claude the constraints up front. You tell it that the LinkedIn posts need a strong first 2 lines because that's what shows before the see more. Tell it each tweet in the X thread should work on its own in case someone sees that one only by itself. And then tell the Instagram hook that it has a 55 character ceiling. A lot of working with AI is actually knowing the domain expertise of what you're trying to do. When you specify the actual platform mechanics, Claude adapts the structure, not just the word count. And here we go. Look at the outputs. The LinkedIn version leads with a number and a bold claim. The X thread opens with different angles entirely and builds across 7 different tweets. The Instagram captions, on the other hand, each have a different hook under 55 characters. It's the same source material, but wrapped up 3 completely different ways. And that's it, a week's worth of content from just one input. And if you have to save that prompt as a workflow, you can run it again every time you publish something new. Pro tip, you can save this as a skill. Here's your second workflow, competitive research. So you type in your product name and 3 competitors. No files, no uploads, just the names. The whole idea here is that we want Claude to go out and research it by itself. The prompt asks for a structured brief, the positioning and messaging for each company, pricing tiers if they're public, recent news and product launches, and a short takeaway section that summarizes where you're strong and where the gaps are. The important part here is that telling Claude to use web search and cite its sources is a necessity. Without that, you get a confident-sounding brief built on training data that might be 6 months old or based on hallucinations. With search enabled, however, you get current pricing pages, recent press releases, and actual links that you can verify. This is where it gets practical. The output here has real length. If Claude says a competitor launched a new pricing tier last month, there's a URL baked in right there. You can imagine how powerful this is for newsletters, for example. Your team can click through and verify before even walking into a meeting. You can then export this as a docx and hand it directly to your sales team or your product lead, or better yet, just share your entire Claude ecosystem with your team. But as a first pass, that gets you 80% of the way there in 10 minutes. That's a real time save. Finally, the third one. Honestly, this is the one that surprised me the most. Oftentimes when we're thinking, we take notes, and those notes can turn out to be markdown outlines, headings, bullets, no real structure. The kind of thing you draft in Notion at like 11 p.m. when the idea is fresh and the formatting is not. You take that and feed it into Claude and ask it for a PowerPoint file. Title slides, section dividers, consistent slide layouts, and speaker notes for each of those slides. Okay, now I'll be honest. Out of the box, AI-generated slide decks tend to look pretty bland. Especially now, as so many people use Claude, we can easily determine whether or not a slideshow has been created by a certain AI tool or not. The default output is functional, but not necessarily something you'd put in front of a client. However, the difference is in the instructions you provide. If you tell Claude the design system that you want to use, you can use Claude Design, for example, specific fonts, colors, slide structures. You can even package those rules into a skill file that Claude can reuse at any time. Claude will create something for you, a presentation that follows and adheres to those guidelines appropriately. You set the design pattern once, and every deck that comes out after that follows that same principle. The markdown to deck pipeline is useful because it separates thinking from formatting. Okay, so I've given you 3 workflows: content repurposing, competitive briefs, and markdown to pitch deck. None of them require any technical setup. You just visit Claude on your web app, or you can download it on your computer. You just need to be specific about what you want and specific about the constraints of each output format. That specificity is the difference between AI output that you throw away and AI output that you can actually use and ship. So if you try any of these, let me know how it goes in the comments below. I'm curious what marketing workflows you're running through Claude right now, because these are the 3 top ones that I've been working with. Thanks for watching.